All right, friends, we're gonna do a brand new video today. It's on. It's gonna be on Menno Henselmans. That's right. The I don't know what to call this guy, man. The scientific slave. The really hard to classify what type of slave he is, but definitely as definitely I would call it. I would call him a religious slave too, in a way. A fitness slave. Okay, let's just call him a fitness slave, which is a type of religion, which is actually fake too. It's almost like a religion trying to buy you on something fake that has nothing to do with nature, how things function in nature. He's gonna tell you how he makes things work in the natural world, the human way. Okay, anyways, we're gonna do a reaction video to Mr. Henselman's video. Menno says, this is how to maximize muscle according to 67 studies, but not according to nature. Okay.
What keeps you up at night? For me, it's the optimum training volume and frequency for maximum neuromuscular development. How often and how much should we train?
That keeps him up at night? Christ, okay. Man, I thought there were better things to keep you up, but all right, whatever.
Every muscle group for maximum strength gains and maximum size gains.
Maximum strength gains and maximize muscle gains. Okay, that's really good. Neuromuscular, we already know what that is. That's the first thing that happens when you pull a weight or you pull something against gravity.
Fortunately for my sleep.
And in the opposite direction, we know the eccentric would cause a stretch on the myofibrillar to a type of braking motion to cause these micro injuries to the muscle fiber, depending on the amount of repetitions to the amount of weight that you're lifting. Yeah.
We have a new meta-analysis that analyzed the results of 67 studies to come up with new answers. Higher training frequencies clearly improved strength development. This effect was quite clear and quite strong. There were diminishing returns though. Going from a frequency of 1 per week to 2 times per week had very significant benefits.
Okay, first of all, we have to break up the two things. Okay, so he says neural drive and muscular gains. Okay. You can get both together, but you can get them both separately as well. You can adapt to muscular gains by building muscle, and then it's now resilient from further assaults. That's a different type of adaptation. That's based on muscular adaptations. Okay. You damage and then they repair and remodel a lot stronger. Well, now that they're a lot stronger, are they more resilient from getting damaged with a second bout? Yes. It's kind of obvious. So it's going to be a lot more harder with the second bout. And then it gets harder with the third bout, the fourth bout, the fifth bout. It keeps getting harder every time you come back to damage these muscles, if you're damaging them, which are not. The majority of people are not. It usually happens in the beginning. That's why they tell you a unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained people become stiff and sore the next day due to muscle damage. They say untrained. They don't say trained muscles get damaged. Nowhere, anywhere, even in science, does it say that a trained muscle gets damaged, and you would know if it got damaged because you would definitely get all the symptoms that come with it. Okay, as far as neuromuscular drive, now that you are muscularly adapted, there's no more adaptations because you're not really focused on that, and you're kind of lifting in the gym. You're coming in too frequently, which is not based on trying to get an adaptation in muscular adaptations. You're focused more on neural drive. So you're coming in and you're getting more neural drive. So you're getting better at lifting these weights. Your nervous system is getting better at lifting weights against gravity. I lift and I drop. I lift and I drop. Okay.
As you can see in the graph here, going over 3 times per week, the effects became a lot less strong. However, there was no clear evidence of a plateau effect, so you could argue that for strength development, you basically want to train a muscle group as often as possible.
You do? See, listen to what he says. If you want to focus on strength development, yeah, but if you build muscle, are you not getting stronger too? See what I mean? So he says strength development. So he wants you what he's saying is he wants you to focus on neural drive instead of building muscles. But there are more benefits to building muscle than just building up your neural drive. Get it? There are more benefits to building muscle than building a neural drive. Yeah. And nobody's building muscle out there. None of these scientists or anybody, all these, this one lady, she's always up there, this pretty lady, this whatever, I forget her name. She's always talking about protein synthesis and building muscles are important and all that and all that. And nobody's building any muscles. Your muscles have a domain limit, then they can only get so big and then they get so small. The mass on those myofibrillars, they get big and they get small. They get big and they small. You're breaking down and building up proteins all day long. If you go to a gym or you go to a job, a factory, you lift all day, shit all day in the factory, there's an open window for breakdown in protein. Yeah, definitely. So you come home and you're like, I'm starving. And so you just replenish that. You put back what you lost there at the job. Okay. See what I mean?
This study, the researchers used a fractional volume counting approach. This means that they counted the volume for the bench press fully when the outcome was bench press strength. And this is great because, of course, doing bench pressing is the best thing you can do for your bench press. Strength is high.
Yeah, but for what purpose do you need this? What purpose are you going there to build up a neural drive for? You're never going to use it. Where are you going to use it other than the gym? See what I mean? It's better to focus on trying to get a regenerative bout in muscular gains. That is much more better. If you can regenerate muscle, well, that's incredible. Want to know why? Because benefits come with regenerating muscle. There's no benefits that come with trying to increase your neural drive. There's no real benefits there other than, well, I got better at doing these activities, gymnastics, my neural drive in gymnastics, or ice skating, or swimming, or running. Yeah, well, you're going to get that anyway if you do that sport, right? Your body is going to adapt by giving you what? Neural adaptations, yeah. Or will there be some muscular adaptations there? There may be in the beginning, and then it'll attenuate. There won't be any more. Like ice skating. You come, you skate the first time vigorously the first day. You haven't been skating all year. You're going to get some damage there. And then it'll rebuild stronger, and then it won't damage anymore. So you'll be comfortable ice skating. You're not going to keep getting damaged there and maybe get rhabdo and die in a hospital.
Highly specific. However, we also want to count, say, the dumbbell bench press or push-ups. And then we want to count flies and tricep extensions a lot less. And we could quibble about the categorization that the researchers used. I have some remarks about it, but overall, I think the researchers did a great job. And their analysis also showed that their fractional volume counting approach improved the results. So it improved the fit with the data, showing that the best thing you can do when you're counting your training volume and your frequency in your programs is assigning fractional values. For example, you count the bench press fully for strength development of the bench press, but you don't count something as triceps extensions towards your bench press volume. For most people training a muscle
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, why are they split up?
group or an exercise 2 to 3 times per week is probably ideal for strength development. The issue with training an action.
Here's the thing: when people want to lower their body fat, okay, they're like, I want a aesthetic physique. Well, they're not going to be focusing on deadlift, bench press, and overhead press, right? They're not going to focus on any of these. They're just going to focus on doing minimal work as possible, the minimal amount of work as possible to it really is just lowering body fat. And they're going to say, well, hypertrophy. I don't know what type of hypertrophy are they getting there. Are they adapted now? Maybe it's just sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, so it's fake. They actually lowered the body fat, but they pumped glycogen in their muscle as an energy source because they're still eating artificial diets.
Exercise more than 3 times per week, especially with the power lifts, for most individuals is injury sensitivity. Yeah. Doing squats more than 3 times per week or bench presses more than 3 times per week, you really have to be super careful with the intensity or the volume.
Yeah, okay, so squat, deadlift, whatever, overhead press, bench press. Let's say somebody just focuses on that. Then they wonder why they are not getting bigger. You're not getting bigger because you're not trying to build, man. Again, it's not based on muscular adaptations. That's based on EIMD training. You're training for neuromuscular adaptations. That's a separate training. That isn't the same. I'm not saying you can't get that in EIMD training, but you definitely are not going to get that if you're adapted. You understand, to EIMD. It'll just be neural drive. You're wasting your time. That's why people are like, I got a stronger, but I didn't get a bigger. You're not getting bigger because the stronger has nothing to do with getting bigger.
And at some point, you have to start wondering if it's even worth the time doing an extra session that's so light, because otherwise you're going to injure your elbow, for example.
Right. And what's the first thing they do, Mr. Menno? They're always like, I got to go and bulk. So they confuse the two neural drive and getting bigger. Well, I got to get bulk. I got to bulk so I could look the part, so I could look like I'm strong. I'm strong, but I don't look strong. You understand? It's like Jeff Nippert. Jeff Nippert can bench, he could deadlift, he could do a bunch of stuff. He could lift some heavy stuff, and most likely he's taking something, some substance, like the rest of these fitness gurus, to lift something heavy. But guess what? When a big guy comes around, a really big, strong guy comes around, he throws him around like a rag doll. You understand me? Like he did now all over the internet. It's all over the internet. And he's proved the point that I make in my videos. Bigger is always stronger.
So in my experience, training and exercise 2 times per week is a good rule of thumb for many individuals, and 3 times per week works really well if you want to really focus on a specific exercise. For example, if you're a powerlifter and you want to maximize strength development in that particular exercise. And based on these results, you can even make a strong argument that specifically for powerlifting or for strength in a specific movement, you want to train that muscle group and even that exercise as frequently as possible as you can recover from. Because
yeah, listen to what he says. Frequency for strength development, but he didn't say anything about muscular development. See that? Because he separated it. Yeah, you're going to be a small, strong guy.
there were continued benefits with higher frequencies with no clear plateau effect.
Yeah, you could literally lift every single day, and you're going to increase your neural drive every day you go to the gym. But that has nothing to do with an aesthetic physique, because most people are focused on trying to get an aesthetic physique, but they're not doing it properly anyways to get that, a majority of people, because they're still eating fake diets.
Muscle growth, higher training frequencies also seem to be positive, but the effect was a lot smaller.
Muscle growth? I don't think so, dude. It's based on these nuclei, and when you run out of them, there's no more growth. The satellite cell can't support any more growth without getting any more of these nuclei. They only ever happen in an adaptation. So he just says growth. He doesn't say adaptation. See that?
Smaller and less clear. Specifically, the researchers found a 91% probability.
He doesn't even specify what type of growth is this. Is this myofibrillar or sarcoplasmic growth, hypertrophy, Mr. Menno?
That higher training frequencies in general are positive for muscle growth independent of training volume. So we're not looking at,
again,
are you going to
muscle growth, but sarcoplasmic muscle growth or myofibrillar, dude? The fake one or the real one? Which one?
Gym 2 times a week versus are you going to the
It's kind of obvious. I already know it's not muscular growth, that's for sure.
gym 3 times per week, which usually increases training volume by about 50%. This is independent of training volume.
Impossible. You can't get an adaptation 3 times a week in a gym. In muscle growth. It's impossible. No muscle can repair and remodel in like 24 hours. It's impossible. This is bullshit.
So we're looking at, you have a certain number of sets. How are you going to distribute that?
I'm not talking about breaking down proteins. I'm talking about getting micro injuries to your fibers. If you injure your fibers, they're not going to fucking injure every day, okay? And they take a long time to repair and remodel. They don't fucking repair and remodel in 24 hours, and then you're going to come back the next day and lift again and fucking you're going to injure them again, and then they're going to just repair in 24 fucking hours. No muscle, nobody on this planet can fucking do that.
Across the week. And in this sense, training frequency functions a lot like your rest interval. In fact, you can think of a higher training frequency as simply a longer rest interval. If you do 10 sets.
Man, this is bullshit. And without any of these injuries, these adaptations, you can't get a donation by the satellite cell of its nuclei to support further muscle growth of that domain, okay? They don't have finite growth forever.
Of bench presses on Monday, and now you're gonna put 5 of those sets on Wednesday or Thursday. It's like you're increasing your rest interval from minutes to days for the remaining sets.
Yeah, sure,
and
okay.
What we see in practice is that when you do this, you increase your training volume. You can do more repetitions, even for the same number of sets. If I take 5 of your bench press sets, move them to a different day, you're gonna be more.
Yeah, here's what happens. This neural adaptation, I'm gonna explain this because this fucking guy's not explaining anything in here. So the first thing that happens is neural drive will increase. The second thing that will happen, your testosterone may elevate because you're lifting a weight. Okay. So it binds with the androgen receptors. They give you maximal force production. Definitely. You're recruiting more of these motor units as you're lifting as well. Which is part of the neural drive. So these androgen receptors, they can widen and you can get more of them somewhat. It depends. You can get more of them if you gain more myofibrillars, definitely. But they definitely widen to take in more hormones. That's their job. and that will increase maximal force production. Now, if you want to increase more of that maximal force production, you want to be in a positive nitrogen balance. So you convert the catabolic hormone to an androgen, so it doesn't have to compete with the myocytic androgen receptor. So that catabolic hormone no longer exists because it's been converted to an androgen. And so now it's not competing with the myocytic androgen receptor, because if cortisol goes up, let's say cortisol goes up, all right? So it's competing with the myocytic androgen receptor. Well, you don't want it to compete with it, so what do? You convert it to an androgen. How do you do that? It's easy, by being anabolic. And how do you be anabolic as a natural person? It's easy. You have to eat a lot. You have to be in a deficit where you are in positive nitrogen balance. It means protein has exceeded that breakdown. If protein exceeds breakdown, then the catabolic hormone will be converted to an androgen, and it won't have to compete with the myocytic androgen receptor, giving you even more force production.
Fresh, more recovered for those sets on that day, so your repetitions are going to be higher, or you can lift more weight for the same number of.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with muscular adaptations. They're based on exercise-induced muscle damage. That training is separate.
Reps. And when we specifically look at those types of studies based on prior research, we see more clear effects. A great study by Neves et al. From 2022 shows that when we equate the volume, which many studies do, and therefore research probably underestimates the effective training frequency, we don't see any benefits. Like if you do the exact same number of repetitions, then it doesn't matter how you spread the volume across the week in most circumstances. However, when we do allow the volume to go up, we do see a trend towards benefits. It's still not super clear, but in general, just like with rest intervals, I believe you will get greater gains, and there are multiple studies, especially.
Yeah, you'll get sarcoplasmic gains, but not muscular gains. Why? Man, I gotta prove it in this video really quick because I don't know who's watching here. So. A unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained subjects become stiff and sore the day afterwards because of what? Muscle damage. So what does that look like visually? You want to visualize what that looks like. And these untrained subjects, they come and lift, right? And they get damaged. Okay, what does that look like? What do they get when they get damaged, these untrained people? All right. So you go into this, and nuclei acquired by overload exercise, proceeds hypertrophy not lost on detraining. This is NCBI. Famous map down here. Scroll down. There it is. Right there. So, untrained, see that? What's a unique feature of untrained muscles? They get stiff and sore due to what? Muscle damage. Okay. Untrained, first training what? Satellite cell fusion. So they get damaged. And this damage does what? It wakes up the quiescent satellite cells, and now they're able to fuse without fiber. How do they fuse? They fuse with the cracks and the domes. Get it? The micro injuries, these injuries in the muscle. And then they donate their nuclei, and then the muscle is able to hypertrophy. It's a stage. First comes the training, then comes this cycle here, the fusing, then comes hypertrophy. Now, how long does that take? Well, the very first time, it may take you 14 days. The very first time you come to the gym, it can take quite a while, this damage. If you were a totally if this is first training, listen what it says here. It says first training. It doesn't say a person that's trained and doing something they're untrained doing in the gym right now. It says first training. So this is going to take a lot longer than a person that is already training. Now, if you're already a trained person in the gym and you're shooting for more of these adaptations to get more of these nuclei like it says here, well, guess what? It'll be shorter now. It'll be 7 days, all right? The shortest period of time, it'll rapidly repair and remodel. The shortest time is 7 days, okay? So now you understand. So it says here, a model for connection, whatever. In this model, nuclei are permanent. Previously untrained muscles acquire what? Newly formed nuclei by fusion of satellite cells preceding hypertrophy. It doesn't say trained muscles get these nuclei. Nowhere in science does it fucking say that. Now, one of the things during that hypertrophic process, what happens during that hypertrophic process? Well, it has a myonuclear domain size limit during that hypertrophic process, and here it is. See there, MND size. You scroll here. MND size has a ceiling limit during hypertrophic process, beyond which extra myonuclei, like it said there, are donated by who? That fucking stupid satellite cell. To support what? To support further muscle growth. So what do you need to do to support further muscle growth? Now that you got an adaptation and now you want more muscular adaptations, well, you're gonna have to fucking damage them, get it? All right. Here's another thing. The muscle that he's talking about is sarcoplasmic because there's two types of muscles. See, these are the two types of hypertrophy. Muscular hypertrophy. A muscle growth refers to the increase in muscle mass. There are two types of muscular hypertrophy. Myofibrillar, which is an increase in myofibrillars, and sarcoplasmic, which is an increase in what? Muscle glycogen storage. Get it, dude? So don't be fooled by these people.
In trained individuals that find benefits. In untrained individuals, it probably doesn't matter yet. Your newbie gains are very easy to realize. We see that in
Oh, I love this one. The newbie gains are. I just showed you the newbie gains.
powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters. We do have multiple studies showing benefits of higher training frequencies independent of training volume, both for strength development and for muscle growth. So that problem.
No, impossible. You've already reached the domain limit. It's not supporting any more muscle growth. It's not supporting anymore. He's lying. What happens is this. Now that you're coming in frequently focused on neural drive, you are an endurance athlete. So it's taking on a secondary shift of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. That's what happens. That's what happens to people that are trained. And I'll prove it in the video. So here's what happens right there. Myofibrillar hypertrophy in response to 6 weeks of high volume resistance training in trained young men is largely attributed to what? To sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Get it, dude? It's not hard to prove these things. I can disprove everything he talks about. So what is artificial? Oh man. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's not non-growth. Hold on. Right here. Artificial muscle growth. Sarcoplasmin to increase volume, sarcoplasmin works capacity, whatever means reps performance because or whatever. Okay, whatever. It's a type of artificial muscle growth. You put fluid in the muscles, whatever. There you go. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, kind of artificial muscle growth. See that? Anyways, whatever. You can read them in these things. They put them in these institutes, man. It's artificial, okay? It's fluid. If it's fluid, it's artificial. It means not myofibrillar. You get the point.
Probably explains the great inconsistency we see here because this analysis did not separate between trained and untrained individuals. It did not separate between how volume was counted in terms of repetitions versus sets. They only use sets with their fractional sets volume counting method. And again,
what do you mean by trained and untrained? You mean trained first training or untrained doing that exercise and doing that rep scheme? What are you talking about? Are these trained athletes or are they first trained?
It's a great method, and we just need more research to determine exactly for whom higher training frequencies and when they are likely beneficial. For example, an unofficial meta-analysis.
Can you be a trained athlete and do something you're untrained? Participate in something and they call you an untrained? Yeah. You can be a trained athlete and do something you're untrained doing a rep scheme or whatever, lift, whatever the fuck they're doing here. See what I mean? Will you get something out of it? Of course you will. You always do in the beginning.
But James Krieger found that higher training frequencies are only beneficial when we're looking at set volumes over 6 sets per session. And I think that's a good rule of thumb not to do.
It's like this. You go to your slave job and they pay you your slave wage called $10 an hour. Now, you've never had $10 before, right? So when you first start your job, right? When you go to your job and you get your first check, that's the first time you ever made that money. But guess what? You're going to keep making the same money forever because now you're adapted. Unless they keep adding a penny or 5 cents more to your pay, then you're not gaining anymore. Get it? You're stuck there forever. You're adapted.
A bro split where you have like 10 sets per muscle group in one session, you're probably better off spreading that a bit more across the week, with a good rule of thumb being not to do more than 6 sets per muscle group per session. You're probably better off moving that to a separate day. Overall, though, it's clear that for muscle growth,
No, for neural drive and you being adapted, coming into the gym like a good little adapted slave, lifting slave, endurance lifting slave. Yeah, they're eating a lot of carbohydrates and just lift. Do very minimal lifting, like, small rep ranges, but heavy. That's it.
training frequency is of strictly secondary importance to training volume. Most of the benefits of higher training frequencies are mediated by being able to do a higher training volume.
But if you go away from the gym for a while, or you're busy, or you have an accident, or you hurt yourself, guess what? All that work that you put in to build up that neural drive is just going to fade away. It's going to go away. Yeah. Even muscle has to be maintained at some point, too. I mean, you're getting older, right? I mean, you could lose these nuclei. I can't tell you for sure. You may have to bring them back. So, it's good to do this regenerative bout every so often because it definitely helps to mitigate senescent cells and myogenic decline. That's for sure because science even tells you that.
Let's talk about volume. In line with multiple previous meta-analyses and studies, higher training volumes generally led to greater results. For strength development, though, there were very sharp diminishing returns. In fact, above 5 sets per muscle group per week, the results became unclear. As you can see in the graph here, though, generally there was an upward trend, but between 5 and 10 sets per muscle group, the effects became very unclear. And we pretty much have a plateau after 10 sets per muscle group per week. Now again, this per muscle group for strength development is a little bit iffy. It might depend on the exercise. For example, we have some research showing that for squats, even 16 sets of squats per week were still better than 8. Squats are a very technical exercise, so it might be that those types of exercises, compound exercises that are very technical and take a lot more time to master, they benefit.
It increases more testosterone and androgen receptors because the gravity, the force of the weight is pushing down on you.
For more volume than, say, biceps curls or leg extensions. Because a lot of studies actually look at leg extension strength. I mean, you don't need a lot of skill to do a leg extension. Moreover, I think these results understate the importance of training volume for strength development because most studies are short-term in nature. In fact, the median study...
Not really. They're trying to tell you that the exercise that forces the weight on your body, your skeletal system, and it's forcing it down against gravity. It's pulling you downward. And you're pushing against gravity, and then you're going with gravity. You're pushing against gravity, and you're going with gravity.
Length in this analysis was, I believe, 10 weeks, and we see that in that short time frame, strength gains are very much neural in nature. Strength is a skill.
Yeah, I just said that. They're mostly neural because, he's going to tell you it's a skill. Everything is a skill. To learn gymnastics is a skill.
It's movement specific, and it refers in large part to how your body, and specifically the motor cortex in your brain, can coordinate your muscle mass. So in the short term, we mainly see benefits for strength development in cases where it improves neuromuscular coordination and increases muscle activation, for example. However, in the long term, we see...
It activates muscular activation, yeah. It activates muscles, yeah. To do what? Yeah, to fucking motor units, activates motor units, androgen receptors, a bunch of stuff, yeah, okay.
Very clear correlations between strength and muscle growth. For example, when we look at powerlifting...
Strength and muscle growth? No, if you build these muscles stronger, bigger and stronger, if they get damaged,
which is like the epitome of strength, not size. Actually, when we put those guys in a DEXA scanner, their rankings are almost identical.
There's a lot of stuff stopping that. And they don't keep getting damaged because repeated bout effect phenomena, then they sit in type 1. There's a bunch of stuff, man, that goes against you there. You're not getting injured anymore, that's for sure. These muscles are not injuring.
To their competition rankings because the correlation between strength and muscle growth becomes extremely strong in the long term. The only way you can maximize strength development.
Yeah, the only way it is in an adaptation, a muscular adaptation. If that's what you're focused on, you will get neural drive and everything else that'll come with it. So you don't need to focus on just neural drive, being a lifting slave, an endurance lifting slave in the gym, building fake muscles.
Is not just mastering a movement, but also increasing the size of the engine, like the muscle mass for the bench press, for example, meaning the size of your pecs, your delts, your triceps. Then you can maximize long-term strength development. So in the short term, the benefits of training volume are not so clear because the neural development is not as dependent on training volume. Like your body gets the hint. In fact, just one set per week per muscle group on average led to strength development in this study. But we know from previous research that it's
No, really? No kidding. It's supposed to do that. Your body's supposed to do that. One set per week muscle group led to strength development. Yeah, neural drive. That has nothing to do with muscular adaptations, myofibular growth.
about 4 sets per exercise in powerlifters to continue gaining any strength. So again, there's an effect of training status. It might depend on the movement, and in the long term,
If I open a doorknob, if I never opened the door before and I grab it, I turn it and I pull it, and it was hard the first time, but if I keep doing it, will it not get easier? Neural drive, hello.
you'll probably benefit from higher volumes because they
How
increase
about
muscle.
how about walking to school? You get better and better at walking to school. It becomes second nature. It's easier. Neural drive. Yeah, yeah. How about swimming when you're going to the swimming pool? It's hard the first time, but the second time, third, it's a lot easier now. Yes.
Growth, which brings us to training volume for muscle growth. If you like this video, you're probably a serious lifter
Training volume for muscle growth. I can't wait to hear this.
that appreciates science, just like me. You'll probably also like my online
I do appreciate science. What kind of science are you using, Mr. Menno?
courses then. For fitness professionals, I have the Henselmans Personal Trainer Certification course. For non-professionals,
He offers his own certificate? Who the heck is he?
my personal development course
You need a certificate to be what? To be training people? You don't need any of that. It's garbage.
will teach you everything you need to know to reach your maximum natural muscular potential at a sustainably low body fat percentage. Check out the link in the description for more information. I hope you'll enjoy it. For size gains, training volume is the #1 determinant. In line with multiple previous analysis, your training volume is like the training equivalent of your energy intake for your diet. It is the foundation. So if you're
You know, the equivalent of these people is take steroids eventually when you get old and go on TRT. You understand me? Because all of this, what they're talking about, is fake. They tell you you're going to build muscle, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and in the end, they all fake it. They're all on, well, I got to go on TRT, this and that. Well, if all these things worked so well, why do you need to take drugs and do all these fake things and whatever he's talking about here?
at the graph here, you can see that training volume quite strongly impacted muscle growth. There were diminishing returns, but there was no clear evidence of a plateau effect. In fact, there was also no clear evidence of an inverted U, which is the general hypothesis that at some point, excess training volume becomes detrimental. Now, that is most likely true because we know from multiple previous studies that sometimes higher training volumes do lead to worse size gains, and especially strength gains, but even size gains. And that's likely due to recovery capacity.
Yeah, size gains. You mean sarcoplasmic? Yeah. Glycogen in the muscle, yes, okay.
So these results have to be taken into consideration in light of someone's recovery capacity. Usually, people in these studies are not in energy deficit.
Runners recover, us bodybuilders, we grow, yeah.
That's a big consideration. And they are college aged. So they don't have a family, a full-time job, free kids that make them not be able to sleep at night. All of these things impact recovery capacity. And when we look at all the data together, we know that recovery capacity for many people is a limiting factor. Based purely on these results, if you don't take that into account, you would say that the benefits of training volume increased for most individuals 43 sets per muscle group per week. And even at that point, the data simply became unclear. There was no hard evidence of any negative results of higher training volumes. Overall, in the analysis, the more volume people did, the more muscle they gained. In practice, though, again, people will get injured.
Yeah, the more volume you do, the more muscle you gain. See what he said? The more volume, the more muscle. See that? And I'll show you this right here. The more volume. See? The more volume you do, the more volume resistance training you do, the more muscle you get. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy muscles, the fake ones. Get it, broski? Yeah. The fake muscles. That's right.
Simply don't have the willpower.
Myofibular growth isn't based on more volume. You do. You understand me?
They don't have the time or they don't have the recovery capacity to sustain those levels of volume. 43 sets per muscle group per week is a whole lot of volume. Try making a training program and see how.
Yeah, that's like an endurance athlete. And what do endurance athletes do? They load what? Glycogen in the muscle, Mr. Menno, right, Menno? See that? 6 weeks, sarcoplasmic. What are the two types? Here's the two types. What's sarcoplasmic? Increase in muscle glycogen storage, Mr. Menno. That's what sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is. Yeah. That isn't based on myofibular.
How much you have to do. Most people end up more in the 10 to 20 sets per week range, but I do think this analysis is very informative to show that if you have the recovery capacity, you can work up to very high training volumes, maybe for certain periods of time, and still get really good gains. However, again, on the flip side, it's worth noting that the minimum effective volume.
You will. You'll get a lot of glycogen in there, especially the fact that everybody out there is eating carbohydrates. They're eating artificial food to create artificial muscles. If you eat natural food, which is animal products, then you most likely will not get a lot of this glycogen loading in the muscle. But guess what? If you eat a lot of carbohydrates, artificial food, carbohydrates to humans, you're going to get a lot of this artificial gain called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Yeah.
Volume was only 4 sets per muscle group per week, so you can also make do with lower volumes, especially if you train very hard. You can get great results with just a few sets per week per muscle group. It should be noted that this analysis has not yet been peer-reviewed. It's still in the preprint stage. However, I personally know multiple of the researchers involved in the study, and they are top tier. So I don't expect major changes. In fact, most of the concern about preprints are from people that did Research 101 class. They're not actual exercise scientists, and they think that peer review is some magical process by which every study suddenly takes its final form and completely changes. In reality, what peer review is just a bunch of other researchers that look at your results, and depending on how much time they have, they might give it a glance, they might give it a good look. Sometimes you get good feedback, sometimes you get terrible feedback. When we have a study in peer review, we often joke about how they're going to make the study worse. Because sometimes you get really bad feedback, and actually you have to do things in the study or state things a different way, even if you don't agree with that, but you want to get it published. So I'm not that enthralled with the magic of peer review. It's a good process, though, to weed out the worst of the studies, and it's certainly better than, say, the Instagram comments on the study. But overall, I wouldn't expect major changes, and I think these results are very legit. I hope this video helps you optimize your training program so you can make better strength gains and gain more muscle. And if you're interested in really optimizing every aspect of your training, your nutrition,
yeah, he's going to help you gain more muscles, man. Tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. It's basically just to sell your programs is what he's doing. That's why it's all fake. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends.